Well, the modern American idea was our tribe, right? And we're doing our best to move beyond historical race, even religion, ideas of tribe. And so we're trying to overcome what may be innate, but is certainly historical, tribalism. And a DEI within a corporation, in my estimation, is asking us to redraw those lines, at least in terms of identity. But I think it's pushing us even beyond identity, cohesion groups and that kind of thing. It's asking us to re-tribalize. And it's no surprise to me then that you would say it's making corporate environments worse, not better.
Yeah. So, I mean, the basic point that diversity training doesn't work, at least doesn't work as intended, is not original with me. I mean, there's a very famous article at Harvard Business Review just a few years back, it was after 2012, I know, that looked at all of these diversity training programs and found that the majority of them didn't do anything. And if I recall correctly, some of them made things substantially worse. And I don't think that's much of a surprise, because the default assumption of the DEI sector is that this is a deeply racist society based on false inputs, like the scores on implicit associations tests, for example, or the idiotic definition of anything that involves any gap in performance as being racist. So the things that DEI programs tend to suggest, for example, a lot of the exercises from privilege walking to listing the stereotypes for other populations, so on, these might be useful if you were actually dealing with entrenched bigots that had not previously encountered one another much. But the reality, again, is that in modern society, only about 8% of people, I think that figure is correct, are strong bigots. So, in fact, what you're doing is taking a bunch of basically non-racist people, many of whom, if you're in the academy or you're in an elite business, are better trained and educated than you are, by the way, looking at the typical DEI consultant. And you're telling them all this stuff that's focused on constantly seeing race. And that's focused, more importantly, on associating every minor aggression you encounter with racism. And it's not really a surprise that that backfires. I mean, the microaggression trainings that I've been sent online or that I've just read through as a businessman are almost unbelievable. I mean, they're things like, if someone mispronounces your name, that may well be racist, and it probably isn't accidental. With the assumption being, I guess, that Black or Asian employees should be ready to experience this harm and fight back brutally against it and so on. The reality is that people get their names mispronounced all the time. One of my good friends is a Caucasian named Joe Wojciechowski, and I think I just mispronounced that there, actually. And there's generally no racial implication to it at all. But if you consistently tell people this kind of thing, like you've barely escaped the plantation, this abuse is constant, a common phrase is don't think you imagined it, don't think you didn't see it. Of course, you're going to create these hypersensitive, trigger-happy people. And that's not really what any sane business would want. But I will tell you there's kind of an anti-virtuous cycle here, because if you create those hypersensitive, trigger-happy people, they're going to come up with an endless supply of mostly imaginary racial grievances. And where are they going to go? To HR, to the DEI office.
For the full podcast, go to foxnewspodcast.com.